Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with my boy, Cal. Cal, say what's up to everybody.
What's going on? Ready to rock.
Hey, today we're going to be talking about Eternals. Yeah, it's hit streaming. You know, we did a previous review, but we're going to go into what's happening with streaming. We are talking about what happened. What do we think on the second look, whether this movie were a little too harsh or not. And I'm here with my boy, Cal. He's going to give us a quick breakdown. We don't really need to go into a breakdown. I guess we could just go straight into it. Cal, what was your take on the Eternals? Bam.
Oh man, it was pretty disjointed. It's not a film that fits within the rest of the Marvel universe that's already been created. You have to understand. I'm really trying to struggle as to why it was greenlit and what was the direction. What were they trying to do with this movie? All the other Marvel movies tend to want to connect to each other to promote world building and to you know, uh, without a doubt, make it feel that you need to see every movie. And this one has very much no connection to anything else. And because the way that it starts, where the Eternals are pretty much responsible for everything, the leaps in technology, all of the myths that people have, well, that kind of undercuts a lot of the stuff that we already had with the Marvel Universe up to this point. The ending, it was just really out there. This is like a movie. I'm looking at it, so I said, this was like another movie, not a Marvel movie, but just another movie. And these guys pretty much did the production on it. Just a really, some of the choices are just really queer at the end of the day. Not sure why they did it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you on that. It's a different take on a movie, and I think that Marvel or Feige is trying to expand his I guess his base. He wants to try different things and see how things work out. I mean, there was a lot of criticism when the movies came out that hey, Marvel now has its first love scene. Like, why was there a need for a love scene? There's the whole cast is like there's such a huge cast, and I know you have a big cast in Avengers, but there was just so much of a cast that you really couldn't delve into quite a lot of different stories. There were some standouts for me in this thing. I mean, like I got to give Angelina Jolie as Cersei off the chain. I got to give Icarus off the chain. I'm saying like that. But I think that the way the story was written kind of confused a lot of people as to what was actually going on. Especially, I mean, this is just on the narrative frame of what was going on to the story and why it was important to Earth and what was going on. But on the other end, you also have the change that they made in for comics, and I wanted us to discuss that along. Let's discuss that in a couple of minutes. But let's first focus on just on the movie itself. What about the movie? The items that you think really detracted, not the comic book stuff, just generally if you were just watching the movie cold, what do you think made hurt it? For me, example is just the whole explanation and the pacing were the biggest issues for me. What about you? And the size of the cast.
Explanation. I mean, the size of the cast wasn't too big of a deal because they at least for me, because they spread them out and they did knock off a couple of people. But the people who they decided to focus on as decided as a part as opposed to the people they decided to put away, again, like the choices. You have Angelina Jolie in the movie, which we discussed, off camera, and you got her in the movie, and she spends most of the time like in a sanitarium with this dude Gilgamesh. So you're like, you wasted her. That's like wasted talent, and you trying to understand, okay, well, why the focus on these characters as opposed to the other ones? Then you have a character like Makari who only seems to be there for fight scenes. There's really no other reason for her to be there. And then I'm cracking up because the actress who plays Makari seemed to have had more lines than Angelina Jolie at the end of the day. So you look at, I look at Sprite was
Sorry,
also something that.
let me interrupt you. I mispronounced the name. It's not Cersei. Angelina Jolie is not Cersei. Angelina Jolie is Thena. Okay, so just want to make
Right.
sure. Cersei is Gemma Chan, who I definitely like, but there are issues on that, and I'll talk to you about that. So sorry about that. Thena
No
is
worries.
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. So, and then the Sprite was also something that was very questionable because all of the rest of the Eternals are adults. All of them. It's not like you have a mixture of kids, teenagers, and everybody else is a grown person. Why is Sprite the only person who's a kid? It was never addressed. It's just there. And then she's telling her like, "Oh, look, I have enough power to still make you human, and you could do that." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." I'm like, "Why? Why would you want to do this? You're still an Eternal." The things that there was never any characterization with her that makes that choice that she makes towards the end a reasonable or an acceptable choice. The fact and the biggest issue I had was that the Eternals are the problem. And I have really exhausted myself with those type of movies. It's a superhero movie. The heroes are supposed to be there solving problems. It's supposed to be helping people. You guys are the problem. If you guys weren't here, none of this would be going on. None of it. This is all back to everything that you guys come from. And the only person who seems to have any sort of commitment is Icarus. And then he turns out, well, he's the bad guy. Why? Because he actually wants to do what he was created for. It's just wild. And we're supposed to dislike him, like the people who are supposedly on our side, even though you are all responsible for this problem. If you guys were not here, none of this would be going on.
Yeah, I agree. And so, I mean, and then you have to me, did you even feel the relationship between Gemma Chan and Cersei and Dane Whitman? I didn't feel a connection.
No,
I didn't even feel a connection with her and Icarus enough. Like,
there's
oh,
more of a connection between her and Icarus than there is between her and Dane Whitman.
and it seems like, well, she literally said, I waited for you quite a while. And, I'm like, okay, she waited for you and then she moved on with this guy. But if you were a dude for 5,000 years, I don't know. I just thought that that whole love story could have been, I think it could have worked if they would have explored more. There's a deleted scene where he's basically talking to Sprite about stuff. And, he's learning. She's literally telling. I think they do talk about it where in the movie itself, where he's like, yeah, I heard your boyfriend's several hundred years old or several thousand. You guys have been together. You guys broke up a couple hundred years ago, and you can fly and stuff like that. So they have that scene, which I thought was, well, not necessarily needed, but I think it definitely would help to round out the character. But in terms of relationship, you didn't feel they didn't have enough time to develop it. Like, wow, him and Cersei have something in the comics. When they're in Avengers, you feel more of a of a relationship. Or you feel more of a pulling, a struggling. But here it's like, yo, it could have been any dude. You know what I'm trying to say? And,
But
and
that
I don't,
goes
you have a relationship with
that goes back to that goes back to what I was saying earlier. What's the point of all of this? You
yeah,
know, is this supposed to be this guy realizing that his love for this character is going to trump his duty to Arishem? Was that the point? It, or was it any of the other things that were trying to be addressed? I think the trap the movie falls into is trying not to be a superhero comic book movie where these guys come in like, I want to do something different. I get it, you want to do something different, but then you got to be able to execute, and you're dealing with archetypes, you're dealing with exemplars, and a lot of times they don't want to do that. They want to write writers, they want to write characters who allow them more flexibility than you'll get from an archetype. But that's what these characters are supposed to be. And instead of working with that, you're like, well, let's do this. Let's try to turn stuff on its ear. We'll do something different. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Right here, it didn't work.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's talk about the comic book issue. So what about the comic book issue? Are the issues with the comics that we have with this movie? And there's some pretty profound differences between the comic the and the movie. So, Cal, go.
Some, did you say some or total? Total difference. I mean, what is it? This is about everything. If you just go with the look and just go with the look and the gender swap and all that other type of stuff that was going on. This it's totally different than what you would read inside of the comic. But the whole idea of the comics was that the Eternals created like a myth within a myth, because you had the myths with the Greek gods, and then you add the Eternals, where even there's the myth about the Greek gods, but even some of those are myths because we came in and executed some of that in conjunction with in conjunction with the Greek gods. And it's more of Kirby's. Kirby has a great love of mythology as well, which when he creates his own with the new gods, we see a great step there. And then I think the Eternals is more of the Eternals. I think you can say is more of a continuation of his exploration along those things. That he never stopped, even when he was doing stuff like Captain Victory. Still, those archetypes that you'll find in mythology. But I mean, just about it. I mean, this is two totally different things. It's two totally different things. And one of the other things is that I don't think they also understood is that Kirby, when he was creating the Eternals, these guys were separate from the Marvel Universe. They weren't really interacting with anybody. The closest they ever got to it was a Hulk robot. And it was just a robot that happened to look like the Hulk. That was as close as they got. And I don't even know if they read the series. I think maybe they just looked, got some quick character bibles, and never read the overall storyline of what was happening between the Eternals and the Deviants, the Celestials, all of that. This just turns into a very postmodernist take on, if it's an authoritative figure, it must be evil, it must be out to try to get us. We'll add that particular twist where, oh, we thought we were doing good, but we're really not. All those you know all of the cliches, all the tropes that we've seen before when it comes to that. But these are two totally different entities at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's very important that you put look, for me, the Eternals have always been. I don't know why Kat Feige made it. I mean, I understand they're trying to get more characters and stuff coming up, but the thing is that you have like the A class Marvel heroes, the X-Men, the Spider-Man. Then you and I know I'm gonna get shot for this. Then you have the B, like the Iron Mans and the Thors and stuff like that. And then you have the C, like the Guardians of the Galaxy and the. But this is like on that level. They were never like the prime characters. People automatically, hey, I've got to watch the Eternal. I've got to read the comics because I mean this was always, and the stories were always pretty long and pretty involved. And here's where I had the issue that they have a huge backstory and it's not straightforward. And I can understand they go in it and they feel very daunted by it. Got it. But there are ways to simplify and make these stories better. Between them and the deviants and the celestials, and there's some pretty good stories that you can read. But the problem here is that they came in and say, "Man, we're gonna wipe that sucker out." You know what I'm trying to say? We read it, don't get it, don't like it, don't want it, and that to me is where the problem is. Marvel stands out, and I know they've done this for a lot of movies, and we've complained about it. But to me, the wholesale change is pretty dramatic. From the characters being genetically, I mean, immortal, they're able to control their molecular, themselves, to be able to not be susceptible to diseases and poisons and toxins and be strong and stuff, and to where they're now, oh, they're just robots. You're like, what? Yes, we understand they were. It's one thing to say they're genetically engineered by the Celestials. It's another thing to say basically they're just robots. And that's what they basically made them saying. These are just robots and clones that they made, and they just make a couple more whenever they want to.
I'm not even sure what the heck they are, because they're definitely, I mean, robot, android, clone. I mean, they're on a totally different level than any of
Synthetics.
that type of stuff.
I know. To me, it's like it's such a bad thing because it takes away from the whole Thanos thing. I mean, they did a good job of developing Thanos, and there they went differently there too. From what how they went about with Thanos. But now it's like I don't know how do you redeem this. I don't know how you come back from the way you've totally changed this whole universe. And the possibilities were endless. You have Thanos, you have Star Fox, you have those in Titan. How do you explain those in Titan being different from the ones on the Celestials, not the Eternals on Titan, to those who are on Earth? How do you interact with that? That's why I said in my last review, this is basically a one and done. I think this sets the stage for some of these characters, understanding that they're now part of the universe of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they're the background characters. And when you need a big celestial event happening or big international, then you can say, hey, let's bring in the Celestials. Then let's bring in the Eternals to help us out. I think that the big bad for this thing is supposed to be Kang. So when things need help, these are perfect. These guys, you can go count on some of these guys. But I think they're going to have to develop further characters such as Cersei. Dane Whitman. I think doesn't necessarily need to have to be in all this stuff. He's going to be. He's been a character in the Avengers, and he can go back to being a character in the Avengers. He was a leader of the Avengers. He's going to have to show definitely more leadership ability to be in there when you're missing somebody like Captain America and Iron Man, right? To me, that's what I'm thinking. This is just my personal take on this, because at this stage, it's not gonna rock it. It's like Ant-Man running and taking it. Well, the Ant-Man did lead the Avengers at one point, but I'm just saying, right now the character who's running Ant-Man is like, oh, I'm gonna be the head of the Avengers when you've had two huge shoes to fill, right? That's my take. What about you? What's your thought of where this is gonna go? Will there be a sequel, or this is just background?
I say no. I say no to a sequel, even though at the end it says the Eternals will return. I said yes, but not in another movie. I just don't see that happening. Not for the amount of money that they spent on this one and the return they got for this. Usual Hollywood conventional wisdom is, hey, if it does really good, we'll make another movie. If it doesn't do really good, we're not making another movie because hey, people, we really didn't get a great response to this movie. Why are we making another one? But hey, it's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. But I don't see another sequel happening. And I think you hit most of I think you hit most of the points. You know, if the whole idea of this is being created because we want to introduce some potential big bads coming down the road and some people who can help with it, okay. But you establish these guys as the problem. And you establish them also in a manner which I don't even know exactly what they are. And then there would just leave these other social things going on in the film too. And I'm kind of like, I don't really like you talked about the love scene. Hey, I don't have any problem with the love scene in a Marvel movie. The trouble is that you've gone for so many years without doing it. The best these guys ever did was smooch. That it, that when you show it over here, it just kind of like, it really stood out. And there was really no development between the two of them, even though I thought they had more I thought Gemma Chan, rather Cersei and Icarus had more chemistry going than Dane Whitman and Cersei. But even then, it's kind of like, huh? Like all right, you would it just really it just really stood out. And then you throw some of the other stuff in there as well. I was like, okay, not really sure what you guys are doing with this one, but you want to do something different and try it out, see how it works.
Yep, I agree with you. So I mean, so overall, I mean, we don't think that this is one of the better at Marvel films that have come out. Definitely not a good adaptation of the characters. That while seemingly impressive in powers and scope, and this is to me, Mike. Like I said, I was saying, I think that having them there when at the end of the day, let's say if they do an Avenger, not Infinity War like series movies, like with Kang going after Kang as the big bad, I think them having a separate movie doesn't work, but them being part of the event, the celestial, the Eternals come back as part of either as a group or like how they're doing with Doctor Strange and Spider Man, bringing them together, these joint movies, I think it can work. But they can't do this on their own. Them as a group doesn't hold up. Probably they need to put a Spider Man in the next Eternals, which kind of doesn't make sense, but they did use Spider Man in Infinity War, right? So they can do whatever the hell they want. I think if you ask me, the money should have been spent on trying to get the X Men or Fantastic Four out.
I don't think The Eternals is a film that couldn't have been successful, but again, I don't know what the purpose of this film was. It's not clear to me what exactly they wanted to do. I can take some guesses at it, and I've talked with people who enjoyed it. They gave their reasons. I said, okay, that's fine that you enjoyed it, but there are films that I've enjoyed, and the majority of the people didn't. And I never saw the film again. I mean, do you remember Inhumans?
Yeah, I did Inhumans. Yeah, I gave it a good review. Petey shot it
Yeah.
down.
Oh no. See, that's great because where you remember Inhumans, the majority of Marvel people do not.
I know, but
And this for me is along the same lines as that. When they introduced the Inhumans, it became all right. What was the purpose of introducing? Are you trying to expand? You're trying to expand your world. Okay, great. How do the Inhumans expand the world? What are you trying to do with Eternals? Okay, great. How did the Eternals do that? Did the Eternals do that?
but let's make one quick point though, and Chloe Zhao, who's the director, who is an Oscar winner, that Marvel was able to bring back, and the movie came out in the pandemic, so the potential upside is a lot less than happened. So right now the movie, and I'll show you this real quick, with the Rotten Tomato, in terms of their score and also in terms of how they did in the box office. So you have 100. This is just domestic. We're not doing international. So it made 164 million. And you're talking about these movies are being depressed by 30 to 40% in terms of what they would have gotten in the regular box office if they had a chance for it to come out. So if for 30% or 40%, it would have been over $200 million, maybe 4 or $500 million altogether. And that's another thing too. They weren't allowed into China. That could have made a considerable difference. Usually these Marvel movies are going 40% domestic, 60% international, and some even higher. So this number has been depressed because of, one, they backed the Chinese, did not allow it into their country, and they didn't
Did
allow
they
it.
allow?
They didn't like Spider-Man.
Did they allow Spider-Man in?
Nope. Spider-Man not. Spider-Man has made
And,
almost 1.2 billion.
and Spider-Man and Spider-Man did 2 billion.
It's like 1.5 is going towards 2 billion. It's on its own. So, they
Yeah,
want
so
to make it.
that pretty much ends that argument right there.
I think Spider-Man is a different movie. I think Spider-Man is a movie that there's so much pent up demand. Right now, it's still kicking everybody's butt in the box office. So I think
Nobody, I don't think any Marvel films got allowed in this year. Not Black Widow, not Shang-Chi, not the Eternals. So none of them got there. Okay, and the lowest performer is the Eternals. If you just want to go by the numbers, which I'm not really somebody who likes to do that when it comes to films, but this is a film with a $200 million budget, and I think that at the end of the day they cracked about 400, so they'll make their money back and then some. But you have to look. But then you look at the other films, and all these films performed in comparison much better than this film.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I want to always put an asterisk that there could have been a market or a bigger market, but because of the pandemic, things didn't go. I personally,
all these films were released in the pandemic as well.
No, but different things were happening. During Black Widow, they was released also at the same time on streaming. So their complaint is that it could have done better, but because it was released at the same time on streaming, people stayed home. The Shang-Chi was actually had that window when everybody was taking the vaccines and it was getting better and there wasn't anything raging. Eternals, it was starting to pick back up again, so that could be it. Of course, it wasn't at the very stage of Omicron where Spider-Man, like people like, screw it, this is the movie we've been waiting to see. We want to see it. We're going to go no matter what, and so they did go to see it. So different things going on here. But like I said, my favorite movie outside of Spider-Man was Black Widow. And it doesn't get that number here, but with the streaming, they thought they could have made. They thought this could have been a much bigger number. So it's a weird situation. All right, guys. So overall, are you recommending people watch it or not, bro?
Have to say no.
Wow. Look, I say this is why.
You don't need to see this movie and continue on with your enjoyment of the Marvel Universe. And that's the biggest problem. This movie doesn't connect to the rest of the Marvel Universe in any shape or form. So you can, the same thing with like the Inhumans. You never have to watch an episode of the Inhumans and you're still very much connected to everything that's going on. You can miss this entire movie. Okay, you could even miss the end credits and still connect to everything else that's going on. This movie is a self-contained entity all to itself. Well, actually, that's redundant phrasing right there. But this movie is on its own island, and you can choose to visit it or not. But would I recommend that you watch this? No, you can pretty much just keep going down. You can pretty much just stay in the Marvel world and never have to visit this place at all, which is a big mistake on their part.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Well, again, I think that the Black Knight, Dane Whitman, will be coming back. Not necessarily. The question is whether the world of Celestial will be part of it. I don't think so. I think this is it. I think this is. I don't see them having their own movie again. That's my personal thought. But I think that they will show up in other what do you call it, in other films. Or probably they'll do like a combination like Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, or something like that. But that's what I think. All right, well, so thank you everybody for showing up. You see what you like, give us a thumbs up, comment, like, subscribe. Spin Rack
out.